All right, good.
Okay, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge of the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Facing the wrong way.
You should know. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our July 20th meeting. We have a motion to approve the minutes of July 6th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes of July 6th? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Financial report and disbursement of funds. Do we have a motion to approve the financial report? We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on the financial report? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have a couple budget amendments. Steve, budget amendment 2023-01 is to recognize Seas funds and their funding of the EPD special operations. Anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the budget amendment to the 2023-01?
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on that at all?
What's the no amount to that budget, Steve?
Did you say the dollar amount? You did say the dollar amount.
No, I didn't say the dollar amount.
$1,500.
$1,500.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Charles. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I should have called that one. Okay, the next budget amendment is actually going to go back into the 2022, our last fiscal, and it's 04, and it's to recognize some donations that we have received to balance, to add to our budget. Elkton VFW Post 8175 has donated $1,800. Elkton Moose Lodge 851, $1,000. And the Covenant Presbyterian Church donated $1,000 and for their funding of the crime prevention supplies and activities. Anything else?
That's $3,800 total, that's correct.
$3,800 total. Do we have a motion to accept budget amendment 2022-04?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So far from last fiscal year, we had 4 budget amendments, which isn't bad. Pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Up next, we have the employee of the quarter presentation. Who is going to do the presentation? Andy?
Yes.
Got Mr. Andy Rodriguez.
I'd like to add that this employee of the quarter sincerely earned this recognition.
I'd like to add amen.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to accept this. Go ahead, Andy.
It says Andy Rodriguez.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. The committee met last week, and it was unanimous. This individual was noted for exhibiting a high level of service to the employees and the public, provided innovative suggestions that improved efficiency and effectiveness and results in cost savings to the town, provided extra help, special unique skills to different events for the town, improving its image, provided exceptional performance in one-time special projects. Example, election day, welcome cards, parties, you name it, this person did all that and then some. And it was a very, very easy selection. My glasses are not reading, working too well right now, though. I can't read this name.
Kathleen, let's get a photo.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, we actually added Kathleen to the Elkton Alliance to help represent the town, and she's been going back and forth.
You want to get it? I'm sorry.
Okay, here we go. I, 5, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Uno, dos, tres. That way we got it all covered.
All right.
He's a great asset to this town and to administration.
I know you were. Okay, next up, it is 12:06. We have a public hearing on annexation A2-2022. Public hearing on 218A Whitehall Road. Okay, so the public hearing is open. The public hearing is going to be closed. It was a withdrawal of the, withdrew for the annexation procedure on 218A Whitehall Road. But we needed to open up and close the meeting because we advertised it that well. Does anyone in the audience have anything to say? Probably not. Okay.
Rob, I have a question. Why was it withdrawn?
The owner.
The owner withdrew?
Withdrew.
Changed his mind, eh?
Very good. Okay, it is 12:07. This meeting, public hearing is closed. No action needs to be taken. Okay, we invited Mr. Chris Sheenan. Chris, come on down, sit right there in the hot seat. Got some questions for you. At our last meeting, our workshop meeting, we had a couple of different things that was going on. One in particular, the two gentlemen that are sitting behind you that represent Sideline Sports came in and gave us an update on the project. And during that time, it seemed like there could be some challenges in trying to figure out a way that we can get this thing financed, because it is as I've always said, it's a very important part of the whole project to make this thing happen. I think the board 100% supports this project. So I guess the question that we wanted to get you in here to find out, if we decide to go down this road, we want to be better educated on this process. We want to know how it affects the town of Elkton. I think that there's a couple different bonds that could be available, a general obligation bond and also a revenue bond. Can you explain a little bit about that process to us? And it was interesting that the individual that was in front of these guys last meeting, who was, I think it was Charles Day with the state of Maryland, actually used, it was Charles Day, mentioned these projects, when you start to move them forward, they have to rate, rank, and score to make sure. How do we get to that process? How do we get there to make sure that this would be a good thing for the town of Elkton and our community? Does that answer that, maybe?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank everyone for the privilege of being here. I think it's exciting what the town's contemplating with respect to this particular project, and certainly recognize that this is a big undertaking for the town. In context of the lack of debt financing that is pursued. So these types of projects are, I don't want to sugarcoat, they're going to take some time and effort. I would suggest that the town, engage with its financial advisor, Davenport, who they're currently working with, who can really help the town with some of the...
And just to clarify, Davenport, is that like Kimberly Men's?
No, Davenport,
Okay.
Davenport is the town's financial advisor on the Southfield Special Taxing District deal.
Okay.
So they serve in a fiduciary capacity to the town, and they are eminently qualified to help the town with what's called going through the credit rating process. And the credit rating process is a process by which you build together a narrative and story that you want to present to the major rating agencies, which there's three. There's Moody's, S&P Global, and Fitch Ratings. And these are the three primary agencies by which investors look to with respect to understanding, how strong a municipality is based on, various criteria. And there's a scale that is AAA, which is the highest. For example, Cecil County is what's called triple, where all three rating agencies have assigned them the highest possible classification of credit rating, all the way down to what's called the non-rated spectrum, And some of it may be because they have not gone through the process, or some of it may be because the creditworthiness of that municipality is so atrocious that they just don't believe there's any merit to assigning a rating. And that's certainly not something we see in the Mid-Atlantic, certainly not in Maryland. That's something you generally see more in the Midwest, usually around outstanding pension issues or certain wastewater issues whereby there may have been fraud or such, so forth. But that process, begins with, an assemblage of all the great narratives around the town. So you're going to pull the assessable base, the growth prospects, the projects in the pipeline, the school system. They're going to pull together all of the core demographics, and they will then, compare that against. There's rating methodologies, so you can very easily, with a high degree of certainty, kind of very quickly figure out where you're going to fall on that spectrum. But what the town, with its financial advisor, will do is they'll put together a very robust package in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, which will be further supported by its financial statements. And they will tell the story, all the great things that the town of Elkton is, to the rating agencies. At that point, depending on where it falls in the rating criteria, it will then assign a credit rating. That credit rating then will assist the town, if it was to pursue a bond financing, with what's called getting the best possible pricing. So a non-rated transaction is at the very opposite end, and the highest possible credit rating is over here. And depending on where you fall, that will result in kind of the overall rate of interest that the town would get on any type of debt that it does go out and issue. Now, with respect to the issuance of debt, there's two paths forward. There's general obligation, by which the town assigns its full faith and credit, and commits its full taxing capacity to the repayment of the debt. Or, and let me just say, in that instance, the town is throwing everything in the bucket. Then there's a revenue bond, and a revenue bond is a bond secured by project revenues, such that the town is not, the town may not necessarily be committing its credit, although it could as a backstop, it could support, the project with some type of credit assistance. But the narrative of the debt is, the repayment source for these bonds comes from the project, the revenues that are generated by the project. So it shifts the risk from 100% to the town to, some balance thereof on the project. And if it assists with some credit assistance behind the deal, then it may be somewhere in the middle. But those are the two primary distinguishing features, is that a revenue bond, you're looking primarily to the revenues generated by the project, versus general obligation, you're just relying on the full ad valorem taxing power of the municipality to repay the debt.
So I'm going to interrupt you real quickly. So the very beginning part would be to understand where we're at on the rating, and how do we know what the project itself looks like? I mean, is that the next step?
I think those steps can go in parallel.
Okay.
If the town is committed to, some type of financial assistance to the project in the form of the issuance of debt, I think it's a process that can be done in parallel, whereby, the credit rating is done, it's one path, and then doing a deep dive into the diligence of understanding this project. Does it make sense for the town? Should the town support it? How should the town support it? That's a separate path.
Mm-hmm. What's the process of us understanding what our bond rating would be? I mean, what's the time cycle involved in something like that?
That's a good question. Historically, for a municipality that had not been rated, it was 4 to 6 weeks, generally, assuming that, the town and its administrative staff and its financial advisor were kind of, heads down, focused entirely on kind of assembling the narrative, scheduling the meetings, making the presentation. It's, as a result of COVID, it's slowed considerably, so I'd probably say that process is now more about a, 2 to 3 month process. Mm-hmm. And that's really just a function of just kind of the world we're in today, unfortunately. Now, once you deliver your presentation and meet with the rating agencies, you'll know very quickly, and they will tell you very quickly where you'll be. So that once that is done, you'll have an outcome, you know, within 24 to 48 hours.
The, I'm going to say the project itself, who's going to determine if the project itself is a worthwhile project?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that's the culmination of the town, its staff, working with the developer, or sideline rather, and the rest of the third-party professionals to really determine whether or not it's a suitable project that merits, you know, the town's creditworthiness and time consideration. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
In assessing that. But I think to further augment that, there are components that would be done to further validate whether or not it's a worthwhile project. One of which would be incredibly important would be a feasibility study, and that would be a third party that would come in and assess the merits of the project. They would assess, you know, the projections of the revenues that are estimated to be generated by the project. They would deliver an assessment as to the merit of the number of teams, of people that would be coming through the site, and they would deliver, you know, in the form of a presentation that would also be attached to any securities document that would be delivered to investors if the town was to do some type of debt issuance.
Okay. Let's say we're a green light. Let's say, for example, we come back with a decent credit rating.
Mm-hmm.
We like the project, it comes back, the third-party feasibility comes back and says, hey, listen, this is this is going to be great for the town. It's going to be able to handle this much debt service. It's looking good. How? So you sell the bonds.
Correct.
And when we're looking at the amount of dollars, is this a hard project for you to sell bonds for?
No. I mean, we sell, you know, debt from as little as $500,000 to, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in any one instance. I mean, we just did a $1 billion bond offering for the city of Chicago. So, you know, our ability to underwrite is, you know, we can underwrite up to as much as, you know, $5 billion in any one transaction. But the sweet spot, you know, for these types of projects is, you know, in the $20 to $50 million range, where you'll get, you know, a wide variety of different types of investors who like the credit, who would jump in, and, you know, depending on, you know, the credit rating, you know, it might be a project that we could sell the bonds to the retail, so that, you know, we could issue them in small enough denominations whereby, you know, the town, you know, individuals in the town could participate in the bond offering and participate in the town's success and economic development.
Does anyone from the board have any?
Even though I'm listening to these questions that Rob has, because of the need of the project and what assets it's going to give to the community, does that play a part of the?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think what we're talking about is demonstrable public benefit, and I think, you know, what the town is attempting to do is meet the public benefits needs for a project like this. And, you know, I think if, you know, it's really going to support its community like it's been described, you know, to me thus far, I think it certainly meets the public benefit needs of the town and its constituents and residents.
So with the beginning of the project and the layout of everything, that's really the big part of it right there, just the plans itself, right?
Yeah, as I understand it, it's open air sports facilities, you know, that will be used primarily for, you know, middle school and high school and, you know, probably some collegiate. But, you know, certainly, you know, it would be something that would be for the benefit of the town's residents, you know, certainly their kids to use and benefit from a sports perspective.
Just the fact that it will generate more business, whether it's in hotels, restaurants, or whatever, play into that, is that part of the feasibility?
The answer is both. So I think to bifurcate your question, you know, in terms of generating revenues for the town, I think, you know, one of the components of the story is that this is an economic development story, and that it's going to bring new tax dollars in the form of sales tax, hotels tax, however, which way, but it's furthering the economic development of the town. And then, I lost my train of thought, but the answer is yes. I think, you tell the rating agencies that story, but I think internally as you're assessing, the need to do it, I think, based upon what the feasibility says, I think it will give you and the rest of the town and the commissioners, some sense of support that, this is the right decision once you see these numbers, which, I mean, you could, page 6, it'll say, well, there's going to be 50,000 people who are going to come through here. We expect them to spend an average of, we'll say, $25. I think you can very clearly get to kind of the bottom line of the impact to the town.
Thank you.
This is a project that I think my first day 8 years ago, I really started working on that whole site in general, and there was multiple individuals that I had met with over those first, let's say, 5-6 years, and every one of them had their own feasibility, and every one of them had it was no-brainers.
Sure.
And now, of course, I think once we get to that next level, we'll have to, it's almost like if we could just gather all those feasibilities up and move forward with them, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. But it's amazing the amount of dollars that a project like this will generate to our community. I mean, it's just amazing.
And I'm happy to share examples of comparable transactions with the town and the commissioners that they would like to see kind of how it looks and feels. But these are done, quite regularly in the municipal bond marketplace. You see them a lot in Florida and on the West Coast, where they have lots of land. One of the challenges that you see more in the Mid-Atlantic is, the density and lack of developable spaces. I mean, certainly here in Elkton we have that, but if you drill into Montgomery County, Prince George, you don't have that type of space, which is why it's not kind of a regular occurrence in this particular market area. But Florida, California, Texas, those 3 markets, you see these done with great regularity.
Does anyone else have any? Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I do. Chris, you sell the bonds for this project, correct?
Yes.
I'm wondering, where are you in that stage, what phase? Have you begun to approach investors? Are you not at that stage yet?
On this particular issue, on this project? Oh no, I'm just here as at the request of the town. I haven't begun to dive into this. We would need to. There's certain regulatory requirements. What's called a G17 letter. I would need to have executed, which is an outtake of the Dodd-Frank laws, which clearly state that I'm working as an underwriter and I'm here to sell bonds and I'm not serving as the town's financial advisor. But those types of hoops, we can get through very, very quickly, and then we can dive in. But right now, I'm just here speaking generally, kind of and topically at how this could look.
Gotcha. But I assume that you do have buyers or investors lined up.
Not at this point, but I would once we kind of have a sense of once the town kind of made a decision in terms of where it wanted to go, or we started to have discussions on how we wanted this to look, and very quickly we would we can line up buyers. I mean, it would take about a week of marketing, and some of it would depend on what the town's ultimate credit rating and how the ultimate debt structure looks like. But if a general obligation bond, we would not do a site visit, we would not bring investors to the site. They're just going to buy it relying solely on the town's credit. Whereas with a revenue bond with a type of credit support, it may be limited to certain types of investors, what we call big boys, and it might be in denominations such that they don't end up in with our grandparents, our mom and dad. They're more speculative in nature, so we want to make sure those types of bonds are in the hands of large banks, hedge funds, municipal funds that that aren't going to be wiped out if something was to go awry. So that's all part of the process that would happen as everyone dives into it.
Understood. My other question was this third-party assessor that you mentioned. Who procures this third party?
It can be done, either at the direction of the town to sideline to do it, or it can be done by the developer. What it does need to have is it needs to be structured in such a way that they understand that the document is going to be for investors. Investors are going to be relying on their output, and they need to consent to its reliance and consent to its use in a securities document. And that's that's a distinction that needs to be very clearly made in the engagement, because there are a lot of firms that won't incur that, because they're incurring some risk. So if their numbers are found to be misleading or materially false, then they could be sued by the investors. So that's a component to the feasibility study that narrative needs to be very clear up front, and it needs to be approved by whoever the third party study is. There are a number of them that specialize in this particular sector, and I could certainly provide a list of those names to Sideline or to the town and the commissioners, if that would be helpful.
Do you not already have one?
What's that?
Don't you already have one?
We engaged with the Ballard Group to kind of further our interest in this process as well. But I did want to say, to the commissioner's point, there is a cost associated with doing these things. That cost can be paid for from us through the bond, and the debt service back to the town. So true to our forum last week, we don't expect the town to incur any cost as a result of going through this process, even though obviously getting rated for getting their own bond rating could be good for the town in perpetuity. But obviously, as for this project specifically right now, we expect to incur that cost.
Okay, well, thank you very much. For the record, I would like to say that I've been behind this project fully from the day one. I think it's going to be great for the town.
Lou, I would say, if you have any questions?
Davenport will be where we would go
Yeah.
next.
That's absolutely right.
Bond rating.
Yes, and then they're eminently qualified for that, and they do that for municipalities throughout the state.
Right, I'm familiar.
Yep. So yeah, no, I would just reach out to Jen Dirksen, who's been working with you in Southfields.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
Steve, is there any hiccups that you see with
No,
attempting?
this will be the first time that the town will be looking at issue bonds. That's never happened before. And I was involved in that process a while ago with the county and with the rating agencies, but
Your experience is going to help us.
well, that was a long time ago. We've had air, I think. That's an interesting process.
Well, listen, and the third party might come back and say that it's not feasible. I don't think they will.
I don't either.
I've been down this road, but we've got to do everything we can to make sure it's the right thing for the community.
Right, and that's a point I want to just to your point is very important. I mean, that feasibility study is a core metric that kind of validates the narrative and the need for the project. And if it clearly comes back and says that it's going to be nothing but a negative for the town, then obviously pencils down, quite frankly. But if you have a good feasibility study that really kind of documents and supports the thesis that this is going to be good for the town, and does so in a manner that can be released to the investors, that's one of the strongest components to a successful bond offering.
Gene, you had a
Quick question. What did you kind of quickly say about the opportunity for local investors?
Sure. So depending on, let's say the town got a very high credit rating.
Okay.
And the bond was structured in a manner that we believe is suitable for the retail public, i.e., any of the town's residents. We could structure and sell the bond in denominations that are small enough that would allow for anyone to participate in, such as $1,000 denominations or $5,000 denominations. Let's say the town's credit rating was much lower, or we felt that the bond issue was much more speculative, we would remove that ability to do so, because we don't want to put anyone in the position where they could be financially hurt, right? And I'm not suggesting we want to put banks in a position, but they can absorb the loss, whereas a small family of four puts a couple $1,000s in, they could not absorb that loss.
I would agree with that. Any other questions or comments? Chris, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you again for the time. Appreciate the privilege.
Thanks for coming
Thank
in,
you.
Chris.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's interesting information. Okay. Ms. Jean Minner, you have I don't know if you need to come up or not, but the Sustainable Communities Plan renewal, we introduced it at the last meeting. I think it's a fantastic piece that our planning director did for the town of Elkton.
And the work group.
And that tireless mayor. It says the tireless mayor worked on this project.
Several members of the work group are in the room, so.
So I guess all we're looking for is a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? I think the team did a fantastic job.
Great, I'll make sure I get it out to the state by the end of the week so we can have a renewal in hand and we can apply for grants.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Wonderful piece of work. And I can tell you, is this available for the public to look
I
at?
can put it up so it can be posted online, yes.
The amount of projects that we have done over the last few years, I mean, it's just mind-boggling how much action's happening in our community. And, you know, we take these little pieces here and there, but there's still other pieces going on. And
That's
a lot
where,
of,
that's where the work group came in handy, because there were folks that contributed a lot of information that, you know, I didn't know about. It's great.
wonderful. Okay, next up, let's see, Lou, we have, you are up and you want to talk about ordinance 3-2022 for the purpose of amending the code of the town of Elkton, Title 13, Chapter 13.04.090, Major Facility Charges, presented for approval. So this was introduced at a couple meetings ago.
Do I hear a motion?
There you go. And Louis brought that up, and I had a little bit of reservation, but the more I've been thinking about it, I'm okay to move forward with it. We just need a motion to, for present it for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion on it at all? I mean, there's some things I'd like to maybe add to this, maybe to the code at some point, that the mayor and commissioners could waive charges as needed, but we can do that anyhow. So there's some language I was thinking about putting in, but we can do those things anyhow. So any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Lou, you're in charge of the bid opening.
And we have received 3 bids from Dick's Hollow Contracting, Grass Busters Landscaping Company, and I think Dan commented that they do asphalt, and Meadows Construction.
Yeah, that was the work.
The first bid we have is from Dick's Hollow, and the amount of their bid is $343,700.58. 343,700.58. The second bid is from Grass Busters Landscaping Company, Inc. Their bid is $371,985. $371,985. Meadows is $457,977.02. Not sure what that 2 cents means, but in terms of $500,000. But anyway, 457,977.02. I would tentatively recommend Dick Hollow for this project. Dan will do his due diligence, but in the event that everything looks kosher, I would recommend that Dick Hollow be authorized to proceed under contract to do the road restoration project.
Do we have a motion to accept Dick's Hollow contracting based on the opening of the bid?
So moved.
Second.
And any discussion on that at all? All in favor?
Aye.
Project goes to Dick's Hollow.
Okay, the next item I have is Resolution R7, 2022, Community Legacy Grant Application. I believe the town, I can read this one. A resolution of the Mayor and Commissioner of the Town of Elkton approving the application and receipt of financing Community Legacy Project for the Elkton Building Improvement Program, further described in the application submitted to the Department of Housing and Community Development on July 13, 2022, to be financed either directly by the Department of Housing and Community Development or through the other departments or agencies of the state of Maryland. Whereas the Mayor and Commission of the Town of Elkton recognize that there is a significant need for reinvestment and revitalization in Cecil County and the Elkton community. Whereas the Town of Elkton supports the continuation of a successful building improvement program targeting commercial properties in the downtown Elkton. And whereas the department, either through the Legacy Community Legacy Neighborhood Intervention, Strategic Demolition Fund, Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative, or through other programs of the department, or in cooperation with other own departments or agencies that may provide some or all of the financing for the project in order to assist in making it financially feasible. And whereas the project is located within the priority funding area under Section 5-7B 02 of the Smart Growth Act, and the project will conform to local zoning regulations. And whereas the applicable law and regulations require approval of the project and the project financing by the Mayor and Commissioner of the Town of Elkton, and by the Mayor Robert J. Auld as Chief Elected Official, Executive Officer of the town. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Commissioner of the Town of Elkton hereby endorse the project in a sustainable communities area and approve the request for financial assistance in the form of a grant in the amount of $60,000. To be it further resolved that the Mayor Robert J. Auld as the town's Chief Elected Executive Official is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents, take any action necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution. Be it further advised this resolution shall be sent to the Honorable Kenneth C. Colt, Secretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development of the State of Maryland.
We have a motion to approve Resolution R7-2022, supporting the Elkton Alliance Community Legacy Program.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's the items I had.
All right, very good. Thanks, Lou. I sent an email out to Lou and staff and the board. We just approved Dix Hollow as the phase one of our construction project. I mentioned that maybe when we start, Dan had asked us to take a look at what roads that we could take a look at in phase two of this project. I mentioned maybe we could extend Highland, maybe one more street over, and maybe we can do extend Patriots Way all the way to the end, or maybe that could even be an addition to this first contract that we're doing.
There'd be a change order in the first one, that's there.
Perfect, that'd be fine. While they're out there, let's get it done. I'd love to do more of Highland if we could, but you kind of make that call. Charlie will authorize it. We have August the 2nd is National Night Out, and want to make sure that all of our townspeople are aware of that event. It's probably one of the finest events. Last year was unbelievable, and I think it's even going to be bigger this year. I heard there was a helicopter coming out there.
That's what I hear.
I hear a helicopter's coming out there, so maybe I might maybe I can drive that.
I like to ride it, and I don't know if you want.
Come on, let me take you up.
I heard they were gonna have a rockin' band out there this year.
I did hear the night crawlers. I heard the night crawlers are coming out there, and it's going to be a beautiful night out there, and I'm looking forward to everyone participating and joining with us. That's pretty much all I have right now.
They won't let me face paint this year after last year's episode.
Rob, you're up. I hope you're not face painting. You'd rather play music.
No, I have nothing this week, Rob.
All right. Earl?
I just want to say that the Elkton Community Center had their basketball camp this last couple of weeks. And really impressed. We had over 44 kids, I think it was. And out of the 44 kids, the youngest one in the whole bunch was an outstanding player. I haven't seen this in a long while, but you know, with your teaching and training and everything, you always look to see who's standing above the crowd, and all the players there gave the award to a 4-year-old.
Wow.
And the 4-year-old
Wow.
really came to watch his brothers play. I'm saying this because I was impressed. After all the years I know of Mr. Gibbons, all the years he's dealt with basketball, you notice these one little kid that stands out of the crowd, that does everything right, follows the coach's instruction, just does everything as a coach would want a player to do. And I was shocked. I had to turn around and say, regardless of who's at the camp, this kid's getting it. So I was just, I'm not saying names, but it was very impressive. So it was a good camp this year, and I just want to say it's always a pleasure to
Thank you.
serve the community.
Thank you. My grandson really appreciates it.
No names.
One other thing, the 4th of July, we haven't had a chance to respond on that. 4th of July, I was in California doing this, but had a chance to see the video that was done, and I got to give props to Sid Focus for their work that it displayed. We saw it in California, the display that was posted on the site. So I just want to give props to Joe for a great job he's done for the fireworks. It was an excellent fireworks as far as I saw it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Charles?
Real simple, I met with a couple of the administrators from Elkton High School. They're trying to do a first this year called Back to School Kickoff. It's on August the 11th from 4 to 7 p.m. And it's going to be inclusive of all the schools in the Cecil County area, the elementary schools and what have you. They have fun and games, something similar to what the police is going to do. And I hope they have a good kickoff because they only got 4 weeks. So I don't know if it's, I know this idea right now, but me, that work should have been enforced, but let's pray that that happens. And while they were also discussing Rob Masmiano, they were talking about face painting. And my suggestion was go to the art department because they do that in the school. But now that you did it before, I will recommend your name. Is that okay?
Sure. Unless they've heard about me, I should be a
I
shooter.
didn't hear about you. Otherwise, I recommended your name.
Yeah. And if not, you can send him right over to his house, because he's right next to,
Right next to the building.
just send him there.
Thank you much.
Jean?
The only thing I have, Lou, did I see that you're doing a virtual meeting tomorrow with State Highway for the bridge?
At 08:30, I'm discussing with the state highways, herd of people, the pedestrian bridge and improvements on Delaware Avenue. But it's more than a pedestrian bridge. It runs from the intersection down to over a bridge theoretically and extends into the park.
Well, before you leave the meeting, can you just reiterate to them how bad Route 7 is?
I'm sorry?
Can you maybe just reiterate to them what bad shape Route 7 is in? I just can't believe that they're not aware of that.
Old Baltimore Pike to the
Old
Delaware
Baltimore
line.
Pike.
281.
It's actually
People I'm
from
dealing
south
with are
to-
highway development people that work on structures.
Well,
I
if
hate to
there's
send
anybody
something to
there.
Kenny Fender about that. He's a district engineer.
Yeah,
They're a whole different realm.
Yeah, Delaware's doing their side, and it's gonna be very nice here shortly, and
it's hard.
we'll look like Delaware on our side.
Big State Highway is repaving 281, I think it's in the works.
It's in the work, I believe
Well,
it
I
is.
know that, but what, are we talking fall, next year?
That's a whole different animal. It depends on contractors, we don't know.
Is it working?
My local guys probably don't know either, so.
I just thought we'd just keep the pressure on, maybe they could
I agree with you.
take a look at it or something. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Gene. Rob, you had one other comment?
Yeah, I did forget to mention that the Toys for Tots golf tournament went very well last Friday, I believe it was. I sat on the board with them throughout the winter and the spring, putting this tournament together, and it really came off well. People were very generous, and it's a very good cause, it all goes for kids, all for that. That's about it.
Thank you. This is the time of the meeting. We open up the floor for anyone from the public that has anything to say for the good of the town of Elkton. Seeing none?
Before you do,
I'd like to personally thank the awards committee for Kathleen. She has come into the town of Elkton and done a great job. I know we deserve it, but I'm giving you my time. I hope everybody else on the board does that right now, so you feel good when you leave there.
I think she's great. I think we should give it to her twice.
Let me just repeat this again.
Very good. Anything for the good of the town? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.